about new innovation. This one is interesting. This one is helping people walk. Larry's the guy who's going to be coming up. But before that, they've won the Smaller Business Association of New England's Innovation Award. They have Federal Drug Administration approval. They've got 150 million initial public offering. But it's what it does that makes it truly extraordinary, even more than those milestones. ReWalk Robotics uses robotics to allow better health and better life experiences. And yes, today we have something really, really special for you, a live demonstration of a robotic exoskeleton. So can we please put our hands together for Larry Jasinski.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Larry.
And thank you, Bits and Pretzels. This is a fabulous way to get to show new things. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be here. For virtually everybody in this room, you were born with an innate ability to walk. But sometimes life takes that away. So what I'm going to talk about today is the use of robotics to augment the human body to allow it to walk again, and the changes in the human body and the life of the person that we're working with. I'm going to start with a short video here for a second by someone who is uniquely qualified to comment on this, and someone you'd like to listen to. So here's the first one.
Our lives have been defined by machines. Galileo's telescope, Watt's steam engine, Bell's telephone. Now, we stand on the edge of a new era. We want to show you the 5 new machines we think are the most important. But science is also using this technology to restore the human body, giving paraplegics an ability they thought was lost forever.
As you heard in his words, and as we learned, as we started to show this technology to people, we had to get them to believe in it, to understand that it isn't magic. A story, for the very first time, we took this to the VA Bronx Hospital in New York City, and we had one of the Israeli soldiers who had been injured walking around the hospital and showing it to them. At the end of the session, this is a doctor who's been working for 20 years in the space. She asked, "I want to examine him." She didn't believe he was paralyzed. It was indistinguishable from magic for her, and that was an incredible step. Now, the idea of using exoskeletons to augment human abilities, you see some wonderful pictures here, GE back in the 1960s to Hulk in the military about a decade ago. It can help the human form, it can help people do more things. But for medical reasons, for someone who's lost the ability to walk, what can it do? So I want to take a second now and have you talk and listen to someone who changed the way these technologies were and established a new industry.
I graduated from Technion, my BSc, in 1975. Following that, I went to the army and worked as an engineer most of my life. So when I got to this situation myself, of using the wheelchair, confined to wheelchair, in 1997, then I looked around and I was kind of wondering how come the wheelchair may be the only solution. In 2001, I founded Argo Medical Technologies and I entered the Technion Seed, the incubator, and they developed the engineering device that enables a person that is completely paralyzed waist down and completely confined to wheelchair to walk.
Now think about the unique perspective of a man who is a quadriplegic or has become a quadriplegic and how well he could understand the need and what was trying to be accomplished. That had a lot to do with the success of the final designs. Now, for a spinal cord injury, on the far right side of this picture you see up here, you can see a human spine that has been injured and what it looks like. That isn't going to heal. It's something that's going to last forever. Typically, in the middle picture, you see the green zone. Those are thoracic vertebrae. Basically, wherever the injury is, nothing below that point really works. It happens mostly to men. It happens mostly to younger people because of the nature of the way these occur. They're motor vehicle crashes, they're work-related, they're military, they're violence, and they're sports. If you want to think about what this does to the human body, this is a very old quote about 60, 70 years ago. Just listen to it for a minute and then I'll explain it a little more. The pathetic, paralyzed patient lying long in a bed, the urine leaking from his distended bladder, the lime leaking from his bones, the blood clotting in his veins, the flesh rotting from his seat, the scalia stacking up in his colon, and the spirit draining from his soul. This is why there was such a need in what you heard from Dr. Gopher. And what does this mean? Well, when you're laying in bed that long, your body loses its conditioning to an extreme extent. The number one cause of death in this population worldwide is urinary tract infection because of the problems in flow. The lime leaking from his bones. Bone loss occurs at a fairly rapid rate, and osteoporosis and fractures just from sitting in a wheelchair becomes common. Deep vein thrombosis, again, from not moving. If you've sat in an airplane for 12 hours, you know what it's like. Think about it after you sit in a chair for week after week. Pressure ulcers, basically abrasions that can no longer heal. Chronic constipation and control of the GI tract and lengthy periods of time. And then what does this all do to the soul and the mindset and the self-esteem of an individual? This is really the impact of spinal cord injury. If you can restore walking in persons, even as little as 3 times a week, as we've shown in some of the clinical studies, you change the health profile, you change the well-being, you change the life of that person. The types of things that are affected, first is reduction of some types of medications. They gain more strength, so they need less pain medication. Things like OxyContin or opioids that are very strong. Improve mental health. I watched a session with Dr. Gopher. I was at the American Embassy, and I would have expected him to have been treated a bit like a celebrity and a hero. We were all standing. He was down in the corner. Because he was in a chair, he wasn't involved in the conversation. That's common with people that are in a wheelchair. Being able to stand and be inclusive is particularly important. Changing the bowel function, we very clearly showed through smart pills and other things. What happens? It becomes much more controllable. Change in muscle mass. One of our more famous ReWalkers, one who did the London Marathon, didn't want to have spindly legs, was her phrase. She and others can maintain lean tissue and lose fat tissue. So, how did we get to the point of leaving the wheelchair behind? You see a young man here, about the first one in the United States when it first became available, that was injured working on the World Trade Center site for Goldman Sachs. Now, there's a lot of science behind it. I'll cover it at a very high level. But one of the secrets of this, the idea of robots that could help the human body, wasn't new. You could see publications back to 1948. It didn't successfully work on a day-to-day basis. There were 3 or 4 technologies specifically that came along that developed it. The first really was the development of a software system that could mimic human gait. And if you think about how you walk, if you watch how I am walking across the stage, I'm going from my heel to my toe. Nice, comfortable way. This is the most efficient way to walk. It's the most effective way to walk on your joints. Now, how did you design a product around that? It's easiest to show it to you with a person. We'll do that in a moment. On the right side of the screen, you've got a functional diagram of the product itself that fits around the outside of the human body. Around the area of the shoes, you see a insole that goes inside the shoe, all the weights on top of that. On each leg, you have motors and gears assemblies. And then you see up in the upper corner, there's a little device you wear on your wrist to control it. The other major element here is located around the waist area, just behind it, a waist pack or backpack that has a battery, second battery is a backup, computer, and the software system for this. All of this combines to give someone who's paraplegic the ability to walk once again. So, how does it work? This animation that you see on the screen behind me It'll describe some of the things I just said, but you get to see them visually. When they're pushing it, you see the light that's lighting up, and that's of a person standing. If they wanted to go upstairs, downstairs, or sit down, they would use a different button. That has the motors help the person stand. Now, how do they activate it? And this comes to some of the sensors. There's a sensor on the side of the system. And as long as they're standing straight and not moving, nothing will happen. As they move their upper body, about 4 degrees or less, that will tell the system to take the next step, and keep going. The efficiency of this, it was designed to be able to use all day on multiple surfaces, across city streets. All of those were components that were important with efficiency in walking. It had to navigate slopes, and sometimes you get to places where there is no ramp, and going up and down the stairs is particularly important. Now, what I'd like to do now is, as we get a chance here, is introduce a young lady. This is Nikki Donnelly. She was a police officer in the UK, and while in service, she was injured, and she became paralyzed as a result. She has been training in this device for a few months now, and as you can see, she's walking independently at this stage of her life. Yeah.
Thank you.
Speak up here. Give me a handshake.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for coming out. I'd like you to, if you could, tell the audience a little bit about what you've learned and how your life has changed.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nikki Donnelly. If you do bear with me, I'm a bit nervous, and standing and talking at the same time is a lot of effort and concentration. I'm just going to take you back to what Kevin Spacey said about everyone has a story to tell. This is my story for the first time being told live in Munich, and this is my story. At the age of 3, my daughter was with me at hospital when I had my car crash and I was injured on duty as a police officer. From that age, all she witnessed was her mum being in hospital and being told I'll never be able to walk again. During that 2-year period, I lived in hospital, not able to walk. My bone mass reduced, my muscles significantly deteriorated. At that time, I had never heard of ReWalk. All I was told was I'm confined to a wheelchair for the rest of my life, and I'll never be able to be the mother that I'm meant to be. Until a few months ago, ReWalk approached me. I had never heard of ReWalk, and I was very optimistic, and to me, it was a dream come true, because my daughter made a wish on her birthday that all she wanted was for her mum to walk again. That wish came true on her 10th birthday this year in September, where I was able to walk independently for the first time out of all the ReWalkers to walk independently within 7 weeks of using my ReWalk device. In doing that, you can see as to the obvious, I am standing independently, tall and strong. 5 years ago, my freedom of choice was taken away from me. I have got that back. Just like yourselves, to appreciate walking again is like nothing else. But what many don't realize is I don't just have a spinal cord injury. There comes with a lot of things behind my clothing that things don't work. The number one advantage of using the ReWalk is my bladder and bowels have improved. This year, since using the device, since April, I haven't stepped foot, as to speak, in hospital. I no longer have infections, and I've become the mother my daughter deserves. And today, I hope many people here see where I come from and hopefully be educated that technologies like ReWalk are life-changing because it saved my life. I'm standing here right in front of you, tall and proud. Thank you.
Officer Donnelly, you deserve that for your service and for your courage, because what you're doing is you're showing others what is possible. And one of the things now, we have roughly about 100 people that use this at home every day in about 250 systems out in the world. So this is a very young industry. But it's her willingness to try this, her success, I think how much she enjoys walking with her daughter, that are all the most meaningful things that we as an industry and I think we as a society should all recognize. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just stay with us for a minute. I'm going to go on to one other topic for us, because what has been developed that Nikki is wearing today can also have other applications. The software of Human Gait is similar, the batteries, the motors and gears. So if you were thinking what is next for exoskeletons and augmentation of the human body, in this case, we need a structural device that can hold up a human body because of the nature of paralysis. But for other individuals that just need help walking, can you use some of these same technologies? Can you use it in a device, as you see in the picture behind me, that is a cable-driven device that is smaller and lighter and that augments what the body has? Can it look like something like the picture you have on the right side here? So what could this possibly work for? It could work for someone who's had a stroke. It could work for someone who's got multiple sclerosis. It could work for someone who's got cerebral palsy, Parkinson's disease, and even for the elderly. If you've been in the ICU for 10 days, you lose 1% to 2% of muscle mass a day. That's 10 to 20% of your muscle mass that's gone. When you go home, many people are weaker. They need help walking, and that is part of our intent. So as you see next to me today is this system, which is an earlier stage. This one's commercial. This is prototype. Same type of computer, software, batteries, and motor drive right here in his backpack. Weighs about 2.5, 3 kilos, and all the weight is on his hips. But you see down his leg, this cable faction, and anybody who rides a bicycle, you pull a cable, that's called a Bowden cable. This is anchored here for a fixed point, but it can do two things. It can lift the foot and propel the leg. Andreas, I'd ask you to mimic walking with a stroke and what your leg would look like. You can't lift your foot and you can't propel your leg as well. So if you can give this technology on now where he is lifting his foot and propelling the leg, it is a normal walking pattern. For MS and for other uses, it can be done bilaterally. So the future of robotics in what's been built initially for the paraplegic community is very likely and very much expected to have multiple applications in the years ahead. Thank you, Andreas. Nikki, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So to finish up, I'll talk a little bit about other people that have used this in their lives. Use some of the fabulous pictures that I've seen here. You see Claire Lomas. She actually did the London Marathon. She's done a half marathon. She's got a high-level injury in her back from a horseback riding accident. This is when she lit the flame at the Paralympics. In the United States, the Veterans Administration has elected to provide this, pay for it for veterans in the U.S. We're also beginning to see interest from other militaries around the world. You see Sergeant Terry Hannigan, retired Sergeant Terry Hannigan, getting a hug from President Obama, and she was the first veteran to get a system in the United States. Robert Wu, I had mentioned before, someone who had done some significant work at the area of the 9/11 site. In the picture I just put up is a gentleman who did a couple tours of duty in Afghanistan, and this is his retirement ceremony. He's standing there and saluting. He was determined to walk out of the service the same way he went in. The picture down in the middle that I just put up, this is a gentleman who was also injured, a police officer, injured in a car accident. Here he is being sworn into his new duty as sheriff. He's actively using his ReWalk in his profession. And I'm in Germany, so I wanted to make sure I got Brandenburg Gate in. This is a gentleman in northern Germany that has done a lot of work for us, demoing, and is frequently walking with the product. So the two things I would hope that you would take with you for this, what Nikki's already done verbally better than I ever can, this is a new technology. It has to get accepted, it has to get understood, it has to be believed. We have to give the data. We have the responsibility to do it. But as you look at this, and if you know anybody that has these injuries, let them know what's possible. This is very real. You can see, again, Claire coming across the finish line in London. In the middle, this one will make anybody cry if you watch the video. be able to walk down the aisle at a wedding and simply just going down the street hand in hand, something that we gave back to Robert and his wife. Second piece, though, is as good as the technology is, in order to provide it, we need support from the government and support from the insurance agencies. The justification is there in the data. They are the types of things that we know what we're doing and have done it. But for we as a society, we do need corporate support. We do need government support for the policies to bring these new technologies forward. We need insurance coverage. We've had over 50 paid on insurance claims between here in Germany and the United States. It is happening, but we need it to be broader policies so that we don't have 109 people currently waiting in line, such as we do with the insurance companies, so they can get it. We're generally winning the battles, but those are the things we're looking for. So with that, I thank you for your time and attention today, and I wish you a wonderful week here at Bits and Pretzels.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to Larry and team.
Thank you, Dan.